Good evening, I'm Dawn Jeffries with Virginia Tech. Thank you for joining us. Virginia Tech Emergency Management as well as Virginia Tech Police meet every year with students to talk about safety, security, and preparedness. Hopefully you had an opportunity to look at the video on safety, security, and preparedness on the Virginia Tech website. It's vt.edu. And tonight we are gathering with Virginia Tech police officials as well as emergency management to answer many of the questions that students have, as well as family members, parents, and other people in our community. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panelists. First, we have Mike Mulhare. Mike is the Assistant Vice President for Emergency Management. Virginia Tech Police Chief Mac Babb. Morgan Ale with Virginia Tech Emergency Management. Jason Miller with Virginia Tech Police. And Madeline Stone with Virginia Tech Emergency Management as well. The last three are our presenters in the video, so thank you for doing that, and thank you everyone for joining us. You know, a lot of the things that we heard in the presentation talked about VT alerts. Mike, I'm wondering if you could start us off and tell me what is a VT alert and how do you know if you'll get them?
Sure, I'd be glad to. So VT Alert is the university's emergency notification system. It's probably one of the most developed systems probably in the country. It's multi-channeled. We communicate in various ways with our community. You as a student or a member of the community can sign up for VT Alerts, and we encourage you to do that. And we're very pleased that over 95% of our community signs up for VT Alerts. And why do we want you to sign up for VT Alerts? That's how we're going to communicate with you should an emergency occur at Virginia Tech. We don't use it that often. We like to say if we send you a VT Alert, not only do we mean it, but we really mean it, and we want you to pay attention to that. Now, every rule always has an exception, and there is one exception to that. So we, again, don't use VT Alerts, or we use it only for emergencies, and we don't use it that often. But if we do cancel school or we change classes because of a snowstorm, we will send you a VT alert at 6:30 in the morning to wake you up to tell you to go back to sleep. But again, it's how we communicate in an emergency.
I was going to ask, how often do you use them, but only in emergencies?
We only use it in emergencies. We don't spam you with VT alerts. It's really just for those incidents where something happens. And again, it's a multi-channeled system, so you would sign up for a phone delivery or text delivery or your personal email. But we also have many other channels as well. We send them through our fire annunciators. We had received many comments after we did the test last week that our newer students didn't know that we had sirens on campus. So we will send an alert over the sirens as well. We will use social media to send VT alerts. Other methods that I'm not thinking of that we use besides those?
I think you covered all of them, except if you are on a Virginia Tech computer, you'll actually get desktop notifications. So it'll automatically alert you on one of the Virginia Tech computers.
Yeah, and we'll also send it to your VT email as well as post it on the Virginia Tech main webpage. So again, we want you to be informed if something should be happening on campus.
I recall being in a classroom during the test last week, and it came up on one of the message boards.
That's correct as well. Many of our classrooms do have message boards. In the past couple of years, as we've installed the ability to use our fire annunciators to give a voice message, we're doing more of that, but certainly there are some legacy message boards in many of our classrooms.
And what's the difference, or do they differ from VT alerts? Do they differ from crime alerts?
So they do differ from crime alerts. The crime alert is a method that the police department uses to notify the community when there's been a specific, what we would call Clary Act crime that has occurred on campus. The Clary Act is a federal law that mandates that the university provide notice to the community when very specific crimes occur on campus. Amongst that notice, we're required to tell the community in general what has happened, provide resources to the community, and also provide some very basic prevention tips and information to make sure that our community members are able to protect themselves from similar types events going forward to that. They do use some channels. The primary method for delivery is an email to the community. We also will upload it to the VT News the following morning just so it's out there and searchable, and we will also move it over to our social media sites once it's released on the email.
And Mike, I know you mentioned the rare occasions where you may have to close for school, sending out a VT alert for that. Are there any other instances in which it would be used?
Sure. If there was something that was going to impact the safety of the Virginia Tech community, that's really the primary function of VT alerts. Is when we send that, and when we send a VT alert, there's three pieces to that message. We talk about what happened, where it happened, and what action we want the community to take. And that's part of every VT alert. And if we do send a VT alert, we always follow it up after the incident's over with an all clear.
Great. I remember in watching the presentation and being a part of that, you talked about things like shelter in place. What's the difference, and I think it bears repeating, and Morgan, I think you were the one that were talking about this in the presentation, but the difference between shelter in place, run, hide, I think there's one more I'm forgetting. Yes, run, hide, fight.
Yeah, definitely. So we have 3 protective actions here that we use, and that's going to be shelter in place, secure in place, and evacuations. So it's really important to differentiate between the shelter in place and secure in place. The shelter in place is really going to be during a severe storm, weather event, or environmental situation where you need to go inside and seek shelter. We don't necessarily want you to lock doors, we want you to allow other people to be able to come in and also seek shelter. With secure in place, we want you to lock and barricade the doors, not let anybody else in, and really keep a secure place. The difference between a secure in place and a run, hide, fight necessarily is going to be we don't know where every student is on campus at a specific point in time. So if we do need campus to secure in place and we need you to lock and barricade, then that's what you should do. However, if the threat is immediate to you, so whether it's in your room or within the building that you're in, it's important that you protect yourself and move into that run, hide, fight, where first you want to run if that's applicable, fight if necessary, or run first and then hide and then fight if that's absolutely necessary. Another really important part with the run, hide, fight is it's not necessarily linear. So it's not always run, then hide, then fight. So the whole concept of run, hide, fight is more of do what is most important in that moment to protect you, whether that be run, hide, or fight.
Sure. You know, one of the terms that we hear a lot on television and the news is this lockdown. Is that an option? I don't recall seeing that in the presentation.
So we use the term secure in place, and the reason we use secure in place rather than lockdown is you really can't lock down Virginia Tech. The main campus is over 2,000 acres. There's over 200 major buildings. There's 13 major roads into the campus. So again, you really can't physically lock down Virginia Tech, but you can secure in place. That's something you can do on a smaller scale, on a room by room basis.
I imagine a lot of parents like to know what's happening on campus. Can parents of students or family members sign up for VT alerts as well?
Yes, parents are able to sign up through VT alerts if they go to alerts.vt.edu, and they are able to subscribe under that link.
Okay. And
I can also add on to that, additionally with families wanting information, any contractors or visitors that we have here on campus, they can also go to that website and get those alerts for their time here at Virginia Tech, since they might not necessarily be here for a super long period of time, but anybody coming into our campus has the ability to receive those alerts.
Yeah. And I'm just going to say, I think that visit alerts is really important, particularly during football season. So where we bring in 40, 50, 60,000 people on that weekend, they can sign up for visit alerts for that period of time they're here. So then, again, the whole purpose is to keep our community, whatever that definition of community is on that spot in time, informed on what might be happening here.
do they have to sign up before every home football game, or is that if they sign up for a football game, to attend a football game, it's every game? Do they have to repeatedly sign up for that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so they'll sign up for their time here
Okay.
at Tech.
Okay. One student was asking, we all know to call 911, but Virginia Tech has an emergency number and a non-emergency number. What do you do if you can't remember one of those?
So there's a couple of options. Obviously, if you cannot remember what to call and you're not sure if it's an emergency or not, 911 is always a viable option. No one's going to get in trouble for calling 911 if they need assistance, unless obviously it's done under false pretenses or it's abused. So that's the easiest number if you just can't remember. We operate off of both police, fire, and rescue operate off of the New River Valley Regional Dispatch Center. So the easy number, which we encourage people to put in their contact list, is 540-382-4343. And that is a direct line to the New River Valley Dispatch Center. So if you do need a non-emergency police, fire, rescue type response, you can contact that number. Additionally, you can also use the third option, which is the Virginia Tech Police phone number, which is 540-231-6411. And if you're just not sure, our Security Center representative can either address that concern in-house or they can transfer out to the New River Valley Dispatch Center.
That's good advice, though, getting that number and putting it in your phone so you always have it handy. I'm wondering if you can talk about what someone should do if an individual wants to enter an area that's been secured or a secure area.
Okay. So the biggest thing, once a secure in place has been put out, ultimately we're looking for maintaining that safe and secure area. However, if someone is trying to enter, if there's people involved, you sort of have to do a risk analysis of what are the rewards of letting one person in at the risk of everybody that might be in here. And ultimately, the factor that we need to look at is timeliness. You need to analyze, does that person, are they potentially armed? Ultimately, do they match the description of a suspect if that's given out on that VT alert? Obviously, you wouldn't want to let someone in that does match that description. We ask people to, ensure that that person may not be armed. We, have them lift up their shirt and spin slowly in a circle so that you can observe a waistband just to make sure that they're not bringing something dangerous into that secure area. Anything that they might be carrying that could carry a weapon, have them discard it outside. And then ultimately, if you do decide to let someone in, that you do it very expediently, removing any kind of barricades, get that person in and reestablish your secure area as quickly as possible.
We have another question about evacuations. Are there instances, other than fires, obviously, in which an evacuation would need to happen?
Fires are definitely going to be the most prevalent reason for evacuation, but there may also be things like chemical spills within labs or things like in that nature where you may have to evacuate, but fires are definitely the most common reason for evacuation.
Okay. One student asked a question about the blue lights that we see on campus. I know that they're in multiple locations. You see them walking down sidewalks. This question came in curious about whether there's a need for more, specifically in the dorm and academic areas, having those blue lights. And maybe if you can talk about what they are and how they work too, for people who
Sure.
I know they've seen them probably.
So our outside blue light phones, which are large towers that have a physical blue light on the top of them when activated, I believe we have about 118 throughout campus that spread out both on the Huckleberry Trail, but primarily in our central campus areas, within a reasonable distance apart from each other. Inside of every building, I believe we have approximately somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 plus, I believe. They're small blue boxes that say emergency on them. Again, it's a push button, and they are located through all the residence halls and including our academic buildings. And the way that they work they are direct 911 lines. So upon hitting that button, a 911 operator immediately picks up, asks what's your emergency and what's your location. These boxes are also very specifically digitized to the phone lines. So we have a very specific location when they are activated. As far as more throughout the buildings, I believe that would probably be more of a university planning issue, but understand that they are in every building and every floor.
Yeah, and the police department does participate in the university planning process when we are evaluating, especially new construction or renovation projects. We look for opportunities to enhance both the blue light and blue box phone processes. The other thing that's important to remember about those is they're part of an entire system, and we create redundancy on campus. So with the amount of cell phones that people carry around now, which just about everybody is carrying a cell phone, that's probably going to be everybody's primary mode of communication. So we've got that as one, but if for some reason that doesn't work, then you can move to a blue light phone, or if you're inside a building, you can move to a blue box phone. So there's different kinds of options that we can make, and I believe that there is one more option through the Hokey Ready app that I think we'll talk about here in a minute.
Oh, sure, you can talk about that, the
So-
Hokey Ready app.
Yes, so the Hokey Ready app has a ton of great resources for students as well as community members around Blacksburg. And so you're able to access emergency contact numbers like the Virginia Tech non-emergency line, as well as you can report a tip if you see anything. You can report an anonymous tip through the app, as well as get into contact with Safe Ride, do Friend Walk, other support resources around campus like Shifford Health or counseling. It just has a ton of great resources for students, and it should live on all students' phones. And it's also helpful, so if you're for some reason needing help, you don't have to search through the whole entire Virginia Tech website. You're able to just pull out your phone and click on a button and receive those resources right there.
Great.
I'm just going to add, we really encourage our community to download it because it's a just-in-time resource. So we talk at a lot of events, we talk in this forum about what to do in an emergency, but that information is perishable. But you can literally have all that on your phone in 2 swipes away. So if we send a VT alert that says you should secure in place and you don't recall exactly what you should do, that's right there at your fingertips. So again, we encourage, again, the entire community to download that app.
Okay. Madeline, you touched on something that I wanted to ask the group. You mentioned within the Hokey Ready app, you could report a tip. And presumably a student asked a question about if they have a concern about someone on campus, but of course they don't want to get someone in trouble if they don't know by reporting them to threat assessment. What would an individual do? What's the proper way to respond in that instance?
You want to take that, or you want me?
Go ahead.
I can take it. So, yeah, so that's one thing that we encourage our students to do is, in a broader sense, one of the main messages that all of us give is safety is a community responsibility. Certainly we have formal mechanisms, police department, emergency management, environmental health and safety, all of which are here for safety, but we can't be everywhere. Our students are around each other every day, they're in different situations, and they witness many more instances that might bring concern to the community than we ever could with the number of people that we have. So we encourage them to be a part of the safety mechanism. There may be some hesitation when you're concerned about somebody to report, thinking you're going to get them in trouble, but using the threat assessment team as a specific example, that team is designed to make sure that we can mitigate safety concerns on campus. So the fact that somebody gets reported and even gets discussed in that session, it's really only to figure out whether there's an actual concern there. And in some cases, the group that meets within that, because it's not just the police department, it's student affairs, it's conduct, it's legal, it's counseling. It's making sure that the right resources are engaged so that whatever the concern is doesn't become an actual problem. So that could be anything from somebody overseas sending threatening messages to people at Virginia Tech, or somebody concerned about their roommate who just isn't acting right, and they're concerned that there could be some self-harm going on. In both of those cases, we can get involved and we can engage resources to make sure that people here on Virginia Tech campus in an individual and collective sense are safe.
And I think to add to it, we talk about this may be nothing but.
Sure.
We always encourage people to call, and yes, there may be a law enforcement response, but our large goal is to find out if there's an issue, and then ultimately, as he said, to connect with resources available on campus. And so largely, if we ask people to call, because it takes that burden away from them and allows any concern that they may have to be addressed and appropriate resources be allocated.
Okay. And Virginia Tech has resident life resource officers. Can you talk about their role and how often they're on campus?
Sure. So our resident life resource officers, also nicknamed the ROLOs, they work within the community. They work very closely with Housing and Residence Life and all of our student staff to provide education, community programmings, and sort of act as a link and a liaison between our student population and the police department. One of our goals is to have that daily interaction with both our student leaders, Housing and Resident Life, and just students within their residence halls as well, to keep a pulse on what issues are happening within the communities, to find out whether there is something that we can offer as a support, or if there needs to be a greater law enforcement presence somewhere to help address issues. Another aspect of what the resident life resource officers do is, again, provide programs throughout the Virginia Tech community. We sort of head all of our major programs that we offer, be it our RAD program, our Student and Faculty Police Academy, our One Love program. We're sort of that central hub for all of the programs that Virginia Tech Police offers to the community.
Okay. And we hear in a number of different panel discussions that we do, students talking about parking. This question came in related to safety and parking, and that is about having parking at night particularly and close to buildings. Concern about walking any distance, I guess, to get to your vehicle after class at night. In terms of safety, what options do students have?
So unfortunately, we don't have the secret parking lot that we could tell everybody about that would bring them closer to where they want to be. We wish we did. But we do encourage people to kind of think and plan about where they're going, what they're doing, and when they get back, how are they going to complete the trip all the way back to the residence halls. One of the programs that many people say they're unaware of, but we try to elevate, is the Safe Ride program. That program is staffed by students in the evening. It's a van that will take people anywhere on campus. They can access it by either calling our security center at 231-SAFE, or they can download the Translock app and request a ride using that app. The service is available 24 hours a day, so it's not just only available at night. If you were to request the service in the daytime, a police officer would actually respond, and they could either give you a ride or conduct a walking escort. Same thing will occur at night, but when the van is running, we do have student wage employees that will actually go pick up students, whether it be in the parking lot or somewhere. The limitation is we can't take people off campus, so it would be parking lot to the residence halls, one side of campus to the other, somewhere in that, to kind of assist our students in making sure they feel safe when they're crossing the campus.
Some students are aware of that, and at least one asking, would they get into trouble if they call for a ride and they've been drinking?
Exactly. So we don't typically put people through sobriety tests when they call for Safe Ride. Our goal is to get the person to where they need to be in the safest manner possible. So that's not the goal of Safe Ride. The goal of Safe Ride is to move people. There could be situations, especially when the student's health is concerned, that they may be so intoxicated that we may ask that rescue be called to check them out. But in no instance would we be calling the police to check and or arrest somebody out of the vehicle just because they've called for a ride.
Okay. And in the presentation, we're getting down to the last couple of questions, but in the presentation, there were a lot of programs that were listed, were described. How do folks get information about doing that so that they can sign up and take part?
So our best location to get access and to even sign up for those programs is through our webpage, which is police.vt.edu. If you look under programs and trainings, you'll see various tabs. And if you click on those various programs, it'll give you a link to sign up, or it will also give you the officer that is directly over that program and their contact information. Also through our ROLO program, or Resident Life Resource Officer page, there's also a couple of programs that we specifically offer as well. And it's the same setup, where if you click on that, it will give you the link to register, or it will give you the contact information for the officer directly responsible for that as well.
Okay. And what if people have more questions beyond this panel discussion and the ones that were submitted for this? Where do they go? Who do we turn to?
So I think in the presentation there was a page that said connect with us, and it offered all of the ways that you can connect with both of our offices. For the police department, in addition to some of the emails, I know my own email is findable on doing a search on the VT website, but you could also email police@vt.edu in order to ask a question or follow up with additional information. Calling the police department is another option, and of course we do put information out on social media. The one thing I would say is if it's something urgent that you're trying to get to the police department, not all of the ways that we have on that page are monitored 24 hours a day. So, general questions, that's a good opportunity, but if it's something you really need to get to the police department, a direct phone call is by far the best way in actually speaking with the person.
And emergency management has similar ways of getting in touch with us. Our web page is there, our information is there, it's in the presentation. You can contact us at oem@vt.edu if you have a particular question. We also offer a series of programs. I think our newest one is Hokie Ready Academy. Encourage people to check that out because it talks about a lot of different things on preparedness, how to be individually prepared, how to deal with day-to-day emergencies that may come up, as well as some stop the bleed training. And what are some other things we've got for this semester,
We also offer ICS trainings,
Yep.
And then more towards faculty, we do departmental trainings with all the different departments on campus.
What is the ICS?
Incident Command System.
Got it. Okay. Great. I think we've covered all the questions related to safety, security, and preparedness that were submitted. Is there anything else that wasn't asked that you would like to touch on or that you hear often or frequently?
Sure. Well, I'll start. Maybe we can all throw in a last word. So what I think is very important is there's probably 3 things we want our community to know. And we sort of touched on them, but collectively, be informed. So sign up for VT alerts because that's what we're going to have to keep you informed. Have a plan. And by that I mean that's not have a 3-ring binder or plan, but know what you're going to do individually in an emergency. We talked a little about evacuation. If you go into a building, no more than one way out of that building. We tend to, as individuals, if we enter a building or a room, we tend to leave by the same way that we came in. That may not be the quickest way out. So have a plan. Know what you will do in an emergency. And the third piece, I think, is have the resources you need. We talk a lot about making a kit, and that might be having a water bottle in your backpack and maybe some medication and a phone charger if we had to go into shelter in place. It may mean having some resources in your car if you're traveling up and down 81 and you don't want to be uncomfortable should you break down in the middle of the night. It may be having, resources for your pet should we, be without power in town for a couple of days or something like that. So again, it's be informed, have a plan, and have the resources you need. Make a kit.
Great.
From my perspective, one of the biggest things I try to emphasize when we do this presentation live is that we are this community's police department, and we want to be seen as a resource, not just the keepers of the boundary. We have a very community policing-oriented police department, which means we do a lot of community outreach. We try to make sure that our students are comfortable with us in some very difficult conversations. The idea is many times we will run these programs or do things in order to make sure that the student's comfortable with talking with us. So when those difficult situations come up, they'll understand that we are there to help them get through that situation. And I really encourage people to use us as a resource rather than be afraid to talk to us.
Great.
I think the last thing I have is we talked a little bit about the Hokie Ready app, but I strongly encourage everybody to download that, keep it on your phone. In addition to what we talked about, having those phone numbers, having the resources all in one place. So when you need something when you're on campus or when you're in the area, you can go to that app and have everything right there. And additionally, we also try to help people as much as we can. So on game days, we actually have a football button that you can click on, and it has all of our game day information in it for tickets, parking, getting in the stadium. So a lot of useful resources right in that app for everybody.
I would also say to follow us on social media for information on like upcoming trainings, or also this month we're doing things for National Preparedness Month, so you can follow us as well as the police department to like learn more about what we're doing and everything like that.
And just to add to what Chief said regarding, if you have additional questions and you don't get an answer, feel free to stop one of us and talk to us personally, because that is our role. We are very community oriented, and we'd be glad to answer any questions, or at least try to help you get the resources or answers that you need. And then I think the final thing is also to touch out on point. Our community we really try to emphasize that the community helps take care of its own. So just reiterating that no hokey left behind, and just to take care of each other.
Great. Thank you all for taking part in our discussion. Mike Mulhare, Chief Mac Babb, Morgan Ale, Jason Miller, and Madeline Stone. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. And be sure, if you haven't had an opportunity to check out the presentation, you can do so online. It's on the Virginia Tech website, vt.edu. Thanks.